Building upon the previous discussions about supervision, unlicensed activity, and the duties of the designated broker, this section focuses on one of the most critical compliance areas in Arizona real estate: the management of transaction files and the timely review of executed documents by the designated broker. Proper record keeping ensures legal compliance, accountability, and protection for both clients and licensees. These requirements are established under ARS Section 32-2-151.01 and Commissioner's Rule R4-28-1103, which collectively define what records must be maintained, who is responsible for them, and how long they must be kept. Every real estate transaction generates a series of legally binding documents that must be properly organized, reviewed, and retained. These include listing agreements, purchase contracts, agency disclosures, counteroffers, addenda, escrow instructions, settlement statements, and correspondence related to the transaction. The designated broker is responsible for ensuring that all documents executed during the course of a real estate transaction are reviewed, complete, and compliant before the transaction closes. This review process is not only a matter of professional diligence, but a legal requirement that protects clients, the brokerage, and the public from potential disputes or violations. According to ARS Section 32-215.1.01a, the broker must maintain in the broker's possession a record of each real estate transaction handled by or through the broker for at least 5 years from the date of execution. This 5-year retention period begins either from the date of closing or, in the case of non-closed transactions, from the date of the last activity related to the file. This rule applies to all executed contracts and agency agreements, regardless of whether the transaction results in a completed sale or lease. The purpose is to ensure that records remain available for ADRE audits, legal disputes, or client inquiries long after the transaction concludes. The designated broker's review timeline is further defined by Commissioner's Rule R4-28-1103D, which requires the broker to review and initial each listing agreement, purchase contract, or lease agreement within 10 business days after execution by the parties. This timely review allows the broker to identify any errors, omissions, or violations of law and to provide immediate corrective instruction to the licensee. For example, if a salesperson submits a purchase contract missing an earnest money provision or fails to include a required disclosure form, such as the real estate agency disclosure and election, READ, the broker's review ensures the oversight is corrected promptly before potential harm occurs. The broker must also maintain a system of records that allows the ADRE to easily audit and verify compliance. This system typically includes physical or electronic files, organized by transaction type and client name, with all related correspondence, contracts, and receipts. Many modern brokerages use digital compliance systems, such as SkySlope or Dot Loop, which enable brokers to monitor transactions in real time. However, even in digital systems, the responsibility for accuracy and completeness remains with the designated broker. Failure to maintain complete and timely records may result in disciplinary action under ARS Section 32-2153A17 for failing to supervise and comply with statutory requirements. The record-keeping requirements extend beyond transaction contracts. ARS Section 32-215.01e mandates that brokers also retain records of employment agreements between the broker and each licensee, as well as trust account records, property management agreements, and receipts for any monies handled by the brokerage. For example, if a salesperson collects earnest money on behalf of a buyer, the broker must ensure that the deposit is documented and traceable through the transaction file, and that bank records confirm proper deposit into a trust account within the required time frame. A compliant transaction file must include all documents relevant to the representation and transaction. Typical required items include the listing or buyer-broker agreement, offers and counteroffers, agency disclosures, escrow instructions, settlement statements, inspection reports, addenda, and any correspondence affecting the transaction. Each document must be signed and dated by the appropriate parties and filed promptly with the brokerage. Brokers must also ensure that copies of all executed documents are provided to clients in accordance with ARS Section 32-2151.01b, which requires delivery without delay. Timeliness is crucial in maintaining compliance. For instance, if an offer is accepted on a Friday and signed copies are returned to the agent, the designated broker must review and initial the contract no later than the end of business on the second following Friday, assuming no holidays intervene. This 10-day rule applies regardless of whether the transaction is pending, in escrow, or has closed. Brokers are also required to review lease and property management agreements within the same timeframe to ensure that all terms and obligations comply with state law. Failure to maintain proper transaction files or to complete timely reviews may lead to serious consequences. The ADRE has the authority under ARS Section 32-2153, to discipline brokers for inadequate supervision and record keeping. Penalties may include fines, suspension, or license revocation, depending on the severity of the violation. In addition, incomplete or poorly maintained records may expose brokers to civil liability in the event of client disputes or audits. For example, if a client alleges that a broker failed to disclose a material defect and the broker cannot produce the agency disclosure or inspection report from the file, the lack of documentation may be treated as evidence of negligence. Designated brokers are encouraged to implement internal compliance systems that include document checklists, electronic review logs, and periodic audits of agent files. By doing so, brokers not only meet their legal obligations, but also promote professionalism, transparency, and trust within their brokerage. This level of organization also ensures smoother cooperation with escrow officers, lenders, and regulatory authorities, ultimately protecting all parties in the transaction review summary. In this section, we learned that Arizona law requires brokers to maintain transaction records for at least 5 years under ARS Section 32-2151.018. Brokers must review and initial all executed contracts, listings, and leases within 10 business days of execution under R4-28-1103D. The designated broker is responsible for ensuring the completeness, accuracy, and timely review of all transaction documents, including employment agreements and trust account records. Failure to comply with these record-keeping and review requirements may result in disciplinary action by the ADRE under ARS Section 32-2153A21. Proper documentation protects clients, brokers, and the integrity of the real estate profession. Discussion. Why must brokers retain transaction records for 5 years? Answer. To ensure compliance with ARS Section 32-2151.01a and to provide documentation for audits, legal disputes, or client inquiries. What is the timeline for a broker to review and initial an executed purchase contract or listing agreement? Answer. Within 10 business days of execution. As required by R4-28-1103D, what documents must be included in a compliant transaction file? Answer. Listing agreements, contracts, agency disclosures, escrow instructions, settlement statements, correspondence, and any documents affecting the transaction. Who is responsible for ensuring that all documents in a transaction are complete and reviewed? Answer. The designated broker, who must exercise reasonable supervision under R4 28 1103A. What could happen if a broker fails to review executed documents in a timely manner? Answer: the broker may face disciplinary action under ARS Section 32 2153 A21 for failure to supervise and maintain required records. Closing remarks. The proper management of transactional files is one of the clearest indicators of a brokerage's professionalism and integrity. A designated broker's commitment to timely review and accurate record keeping ensures compliance with state law, protects clients' interests, and upholds the ethical standards of the real estate industry. By maintaining thorough records, brokers not only safeguard their business, but also contribute to the broader mission of public trust that underpins Arizona's real estate system.